Good morning, everybody. Welcome to today's 1 Million by 1 Million Strategy Roundtable for Entrepreneurs. 1M1M, as you know, is the first and only global virtual accelerator for technology startups. Our mission is to help 1 million entrepreneurs reach $1 million and beyond in annual revenue. In support of that mission, we do these free roundtables week after week after week. This is the 646th roundtable, and we have a combination of things that happens at these roundtables. Of course, you're always welcome to come and ask questions. We have mentoring sessions, we have investor discussions, a variety of different kind of programming, but this is your best bet to come and talk to me. So today we are going to focus on a conversation with Naganand Doraswamy of Ideaspring Capital, based out of Bangalore. And we're going to spend most of our time today on this conversation, and then we can take you in questions. Naganand, welcome. It's great to catch up. I know you've been on our program before. So we have some context about your fund, but let's start by level setting a little bit. Like, since we talked last, where are you with the fund? Of course, the industry has been evolving quite significantly, so lots have happened. So just give us a little bit of an introduction of where you are with Ideaspring, and then we'll dive into the modern age of what's happening in the age of AI.
Thanks a lot for having me on this show again, Shamana, and congratulations on your 646th. And I'm looking forward to the day where it'll be 1,000, and it'll be awesome to hit that milestone as well. So in terms of Ideaspring Capital, from last time we spoke, I said last time as well, we are early stage fund based in Bangalore, investing on innovation-based startups. Like I use the term innovation because it's not necessarily software, but we also do life sciences and hardware to a certain extent. So we focus on India-based entrepreneurs who are like building these kinds of products from India for the Indian market and for the world market as well. Because as soon as you say you're building a software product, particularly for the enterprises, then the market has to be global because of you hitting a ceiling if you're just selling in India. So we have had some very, very interesting investments since we last spoke, and most we have invested in a quantum computing software company now, which is basically started by a professor from Rice, was moved back to India, gave up his chair in Rice, and then started this startup. That is one. We have invested in one in basically a startup building proteins as a sugar substitute, so manufacture proteins not necessarily based on plant, but also from proteins. And invested in the prof who was coming out of IISc, using Raman spectroscopy to really identify various materials inside a closed container. And also one other company most recently we invested in is a startup based of California, which is still in progress, where we are providing very, very contextual, individual, personalized learning graphs for anybody who is trying to learn anything, not necessarily school, but even in corporate skill development and so on and so forth. So interesting times, and lot is happening, as you know. And also in India, the key change that has come in is more and more funds, more and more people. Everybody talks about deep tech now. Although I would say, we should still, deep tech is still, 20-25% of the total startups that even our own fund invests in. I think good products coming out of India, the probability is going up. There's also now talk on semiconductors and AI, so we'll talk about that.
The big shift that I see since I started working on the Indian ecosystem back in 2005, I would say I did companies out of India before, obviously. In fact, one of the earlier product companies, but that movement, that shift from services to product is complete. That move has happened. And it, I would say it took maybe a decade for that move to really happen fully, but it has happened now. There's no ambiguity about Indian products in the global market anymore, which is a major accomplishment. So now, of course,
well, I agree with you on that. 100% true on that. Yes.
So where we are today, there is, the popular consciousness, the consciousness of the entrepreneurial ecosystem, everything currently is dominated by AI. So today, I wanted to invite you back here to discuss what is your investment thesis in the age of AI? How are you looking at the market? The trends, where are the investment opportunities, what to avoid? There's AI is happening in many different ways. What can you actually invest in and make money in?
So I think as an investor, I should frankly accept that I'm living in one of the most confusing times. Because when you look at AI, it's like, what can you invest in, how much can you invest in, at what stage you want to invest in, whether you want to go horizontal at the foundation layer, or you want to go into tools, or you want to go into verticals, contextualizing, or SaaS companies adding co-pilots. I think I must say these are confusing times, because opportunities exist, but things are moving so fast, it becomes very hard to say what will still be relevant 3 years down the road. Right? As an investor, whenever you want to invest, you want to say, all right, let me fast forward 3 years and then see what will be relevant at that time, because what you're building today, you will take 3 years to get some kind of a product. What post the product market fit, wanting to sell, it takes some time. But things are moving at such a furious pace, it's hard to predict what's going to happen next quarter, let alone what's going to happen in the next 3 years. So that's why I say it's very confusing times, and we have been, we recently conducted a research for our own fund, and number of seed stage and early stage startups in AI in the last 6 quarters that are emanated in India is about 550. Right? I'm talking about seed stage. Now, many of those are run of the mill or solving some problem that I am afraid one of the big guys will just sneeze and then it gets subsumed by that, right? So I think the biggest challenge that we are facing in our own decision-making process is how to steer very clear of what the big guys can do, who are putting tens of billions of dollars investing and trying to do something, and stay away from that. Meaning, don't be in the foundation model, don't be in the generic stuff that they will absolutely subsume, right? And also now with ChatGPT 4.0 multimodal stuff, where you are saying, look, I will, ChatGPT is textual, I will look at voice, video, and other aspects and make it multimodal. I think that's also gone. That also gets absorbed by what these guys are talking about. Right. So that brings into, you either play in the consumer space, providing intelligence to consumers, based on their data and so on and so forth. But we are not a consumer focused fund. So that kind of goes away, because we can't invest in those, because we sell in startups that invest in enterprises. So that brings us to what can you do with enterprises, right? So what can you do with enterprises? You can either give them tools for them to choose the LLMs they want, or how best to gather all the data and how best to train the LLMs in the enterprise specific use case, for them to basically make sense of deploying AI for converting tasks into workflow. That's an area we are looking at. In some cases, we are also saying, is there specific things you can do with enterprise specific data? So build generic platforms that enterprises can use to derive benefits out of the data that they have, because other big thing is, OpenAI is generic, but it doesn't have enterprise specific data. But then the question is, how do you get the enterprise specific data and chain it so that it's meaningful, right? So we are looking at these specific areas and not venturing out into the, either core tools or even the foundation layer. So hence our area of focus is quite narrow now, and that's where we are looking to invest in startups. We have invested in one in the AI space. But other thing that's happening is most of our SaaS companies are also now expanding into using Gen AI capabilities. Right? That's a trend. So 5 or 6 of our startups are now bringing on AI co-pilots and then trying to make best sense of the emerging AI sector. So this is kind of where we are in our thought process, in our journey in looking at AI.
So let's double click down on your current portfolio. Let's discuss the AI company that you have invested in fresh, and let's also discuss the 7 SaaS companies that are bringing in AI co-pilots. So let's do some case studies so we understand these trends a little bit, from the grounds that you can talk about with real experience.
So let me talk about 2-3 that we have already invested in, and I'll briefly talk about the one where we are given the term sheet, but it's still not announced. So we have invested in a company called Mason, along with Axel Partners in India.
Mm-hmm.
And they basically were enabling e-commerce companies to send very personalized marketing messages to the consumers to get them to come to the website. And when they come to the website, also dynamically determine when to give discounts, when to offer sale, because they were building a product that basically, if I can use the term very loosely, becoming a online shop floor manager, right? So a lot of e-commerce companies had, the owners have to run their own website, but they don't have the capability. So this company basically provides the entire platform for them to run whatever is required for the shop, for the customers who are coming online to shop, including marketing and other things. Right now, with the Gen AI and with understanding the user, now how do you actually create very specific user-specific marketing messages, and hence how do you increase the probability of the e-commerce sites getting customers on board and converting them, right? So with the Gen AI capability and with understanding the user patterns, you can very quickly generate very specific, customized messages dynamically. Right? So now they're including that in the whole process. Another company called Manage Artworks, which basically works with all various large enterprises, FMCG or pharma, and they manage all their artwork and label management. Now, in this company, we are looking at how can you help these companies design their own, labels, design their own marketing material or the boxes, right? So that you have to learn all the various artworks they have had in their company, and now use that and intelligently and creatively suggest what could be a potential, packaging material or packaging information, labeling information for that company, and that's another use case we are looking at. A third company is a company called B2Brain, which basically uses AI techniques to kind of, when you have sales guys wanting to talk to a company, it matches what your customer products are and what your product is, and then gives real-time indicators for the sales guys to talk about give meaningful information for their prospects to have a better sales conversion. And again, generating the text for this, having known all this, is another use case. So these are all companies that are existing in the portfolio that now we are looking at how best to imbibe the capabilities that Gen AI is bringing in. And pretty much most of the SaaS startups now today, Shamana, I think, have to look at this. So that's one set of things we are doing.
So on that topic, it is not so easy for SaaS startups to incorporate AI as a retrofit, right? Because the stacks are different. If you're trying to build a product that is really AI native, the stack to build that on is not necessarily the same stack that you had already built your previous capabilities on, and that retrofitting people are having real trouble with, from what I'm hearing out there. So that's one issue. I think some sort of an agent architecture where you have your core SaaS product and then there are these enhancers with agents. That's a possibility. That's like co-pilot, as you call it, is one way to kind of circumvent that problem. That is, if it's possible within the workflow, that's a possibility. In terms of companies that are coming in, built, AI native, built in the AI era, and are competing with the existing SaaS companies in the same domain, I think that's tricky for the companies that are coming. Maybe these SaaS companies have $10-20 million worth of revenues, but if an AI company comes in, a new fresh AI company comes in and disrupts that market, that's a tricky situation, right?
Yeah, it is. It is. I mean, no doubt. But that's why I was saying, even if the AI company were to come in, right? Uh, it also, to a large extent, to many times depends on the interfaces you have had with the other enterprise ecosystem as well, right? There's one part is generative AI that you can look at and then build and get answers to the questions. And there's the whole situation on how does the user interact with it inside the enterprise and get meaningful outcomes, right? So, for example, another company, I'll give you another company of ours called MeHope, which basically is building contact center software. And what does the contact center software do? Whenever a customer speaks, it identifies any taboo words because it is catching it and translating voice into text and comparing all those things. So you can now say you are AI first and then build that code, right? LLM based code. But then there are so many other systems in the contact center that you have to interface with. So it's AI.
Yes.
Part of it is a core, but then interfacing with all the other software in the enterprise, another one, and there that becomes harder, right? So it is if it is just a pure independent system where you don't have to interact with any other enterprise system, then you're okay. But there's a lot of time and energy that is spent in interfacing with so much data information the enterprise has. AI can solve one part of it, but there's a lot of other things that still needs to happen, and that you have to be very careful about it. So if your software, if your product is such that it's just core AI, somebody can come in and build something new and get rid of you, that's a dangerous situation to be in. To a point, yes, one has to be careful, but selling to enterprises, you also have to understand, hence, which other softwares in the enterprise you're interacting with.
Absolutely. So vertical AI means the entire vertical workflow, APIs,
Yes.
integrations, everything, right? In any kind
Correct.
of vertical AI application, AI is only part of the puzzle. All the rest of it has to work out.
Yes. Yeah. So that's the way. See, that's why we have to build the moat, right? Like in our company, we have taken 3-4 years to build all these interfaces. So we had a voice LLM. Yeah, you can replace this voice LLM with something new because we have our own proprietary voice LLM, and you can say there's an industry standard voice LLM that you can just take and plug in and do it. But that's just not it, right? You just have to build the entire application, and that's where I think you can build your moat.
Yeah. So the other point I want to make in this discussion is that AI is not only generative AI. There are many very powerful problems that are being solved with AI, but not necessarily generative AI. The domain of medical imaging analysis, that's not a generative AI problem necessarily. That is an AI problem. It's not necessarily a generative AI problem. So you don't necessarily need to converse with your imaging system. You need the data. You need big data. You need to be able to diagnose things using big data. And that's an AI problem. That's a big data problem. It's not a generative AI problem. And those kinds of companies, actually, Tempus just went public with that, solving that problem. One of the first pure play AI companies to go public. So I think even though generative AI is dominating the popular consciousness, generative AI is part of the story. It's not the entire story. That's something to remember. The other point that this may actually be helpful in your thinking about the framework of investing, the way I think about it is that, we have gone through the whole platform as a service cycle with cloud computing, right? Very early on, Salesforce had their CRM product, but very early on, they also brought in this Force.com product. I remember I was invited to the launch of the Force.com accelerator in the mid 2000s, and that created the platform on which many cloud companies, cloud application companies, vertical cloud companies got built. Viva was built on that, Aptus was built on that, and these are very large companies. So if you apply that same architecture and same general model to AI, there are AI platforms now, AI paths, on which you can build vertical products. So you don't have to build the whole stack. You build your own domain-specific AI, and you build the vertical workflow, and you can have more cost-efficient businesses rather than these, what's happening. AI is attracting a tremendous amount of money, and especially these horizontal AI platforms and new LLMs and all these are attracting incredibly large amounts of money, but you are a relatively small fund. You cannot play that game.
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. So you're going to have to find a strategy of how to invest in companies that can build in a capital efficient manner. So, in 1Mby1M, we don't really play in that game either. We are trying to empower as many entrepreneurs as possible as to be able to play as entrepreneurs, and most of them are bootstrapping first and raising small amounts of money. There are exceptions. Freshworks raised a very large amount of money that came through our accelerator, but that's an exception, not the rule. 1 million companies are not going to raise huge amounts of money. So I think the platform as a service layer of abstraction of infrastructure is really, really important to empower the large-scale AI application revolution. And it is happening, I think, to some extent.
Yeah, so I think you're right, because see, there are 2-3 ways to invest in AI companies, right? I mean, what we have seen happen in Valley also is large amounts are given to some very good entrepreneurs to say, you guys go figure out, try a few things out, something will work, right? I mean, that works in the Valley context where there are large funds and they kind of believe that the entrepreneurs will figure something out. But like you said, we don't have that luxury. We don't have that capital to say, all right, we'll give you some, go play around and figure out and come back and something will work out, right? Because a lot of what is happening in AI today is still very exploratory. People will say, all right, go, let's try something out, and they pick the best of the best, and then say, all right, we give you $20 million, $30 million, go figure out something. Something will happen as you play around, you'll figure it out. One of the trends that is happening in India also to a large extent is there's a lot of AI services company coming up, right? Mm-hmm. And the reason that AI services companies are coming up is they're all saying, let's do a few projects and let's see where there's a lowest common denominator that is emerging, and then go build a product around it, right? Whether it's a vertical SaaS or whether it's a platform specific thing. As in when you do more services, you start learning from it because it's such a dynamic field. It's very, very hard to say, I'll build this platform and I'll build this vertical SaaS or whatever. So I think that's another trend we are seeing.
This is a very good point that you brought up, Naganand, because, in 1Mby1M, you may have seen my writings on this. We have always supported bootstrapping using services. For the very same reason that you just pointed out, is that you see the problem recurring in multiple customers, and you start, solving them with services, but you're also developing IP and a product and productization in that process. It's a tried and true strategy of building a product by bootstrapping with services. Now, if you transfer that to the AI situation, absolutely, that is a great strategy, because that's that gives you access to data. One of the gating items in building an AI product is data access.
Absolutely.
So the minute you switch that model to a services model, the data is there in the customer's shop, and you can access data and train your models with data. The other thing that I'm seeing is, this is something you may want to consider in how you're investing, is that AI companies in the Valley are actually going to market as services companies, not as product companies. If you look at Palantir, they've done it all along. There's a company called Machinify that is doing really well, and they've been doing AI for a while. This is not a late generative AI kind of company. They have been doing, Machinify has been doing AI for now a good 5-6 years already, and are a robust company. But I've talked to the founder, one of the founders. This company can make charge so much more in a services mode. I mean, they're doing $1 million contracts in a services mode. So they use their own product. They do the services on top, and they can charge an enormous amount of money because enterprises are willing to pay. If you can't show this massive ROI in implementing a solution with AI, people are willing to pay tremendous amounts of money because automation can immediately equate to enormous savings, right? Whether you like it or not, AI is replacing people at scale. You can build a solution that is going to replace 10,000 people in an enterprise. Well, people are going to pay millions of dollars for that. Do it in a services mode and, product service, technology service, whatever. Implement that, deliver the AI, the ROI, and develop the case study. You have all the material you need to productize and reference sell those kinds of use cases.
Yeah, I think your point. I think we are so early in this entire AI cycle. It's very hard to conceive and build a product because one is we are early, and the second is things are so dynamic.
Things are
So
changing.
when
Yeah,
things are so dynamic, it becomes very, very hard to kind of build something that you think will be relevant a year or 2 years down the road. I think that's a significant challenge that we are seeing as investors as well, and I'm sure even entrepreneurs who are trying to build products around it. What will be relevant in 2 years, because we have seen in the valley, right, a lot of AI companies now trying to close. Either they want to get bought out or they want to sell to somebody because things are moving so fast. It is very, very hard to keep on be relevant in the industry. So I think those are some of the key challenges. So going the services way and then wading your way through the waters initially, and then understanding where things are slowly merging or converging. I think that's a good strategy. One of the good strategies one could use.
Yeah, I think for entrepreneurs listening to this conversation, there are two takeaways that you want to consider. One is find a platform that you can build on. And if you're building enterprise products or, mid-market products, B2B, look at a platform called Cohere. Cohere is an LLM. It's a, full-fledged AI platform, but it is focusing entirely on enterprise. Right? It is a B2B platform, enterprise platform. So that may be a place where you will find a lot more infrastructure for building B2B apps. Of course, Microsoft Azure is also supporting B2B apps in a big way. Google, IBM, they're all their AI platforms are trying to support B2B app development. So that's on the platform side, that's something to remember. And the second point is the services conversation we just had, because if you have domain expertise in a particular domain, whether it's a vertical or some cybersecurity element or something that you really understand deeply, where AI can make a big difference, go out and do services projects, maybe on top of a platform, and start developing solutions and start building IP. And it's okay if it takes you 3 years to productize, because the beauty of services projects is that money will come in right away, right? Services projects, you can design the milestones, milestone payments with one payment in advance and then maybe 3 other payments. Your seed payment, seed money, seed capital can come from your services projects. So that's a very powerful way of building products, tried and true way. If you're looking for case studies to refer to, bootstrapping using services in our curriculum is a very good place to go look at a lot of curriculum case studies on. But it is, I think, AI is also expensive to bootstrap, right? AI engineers cost more money than regular engineers. People who understand AI are at a premium right now. So it's going to be very interesting to be able to leverage the bootstrapping using services model to get at least your, develop your understanding of what the market needs and how you can monetize as you go along.
The other comment also is the fact that the cost of the inferencing, right, even in the enterprises, People, I've read articles and I've spoken to a few people in the enterprise as well and they're concerned and worried about what does it cost me to get value out of this as well. And that is still being proven in the enterprises because cost of inferencing is also not cheap. Training costs exist, and then inferencing costs also exist. So it's all adding up from the cost perspective. And interestingly, one other area where one of my startups, which has some aspects of behavioral sciences and AI in it, which is trying to sell to an enterprise, it's becoming harder to sell to enterprise because the question they were asked is, prove to me that it's unbiased. As soon as you say AI, so there are more and more questions that are being asked by enterprises when you take a product to sell to them, as people are learning, because if it is exposed to internal or external people in an organization, these questions are being asked now. So I think there are a few set of challenges that is still not come to light, or people will start asking, which will all have to figure out. Like we used to have ISO 27001 for security. I think you'll have a whole bunch of standards coming for AI saying, say there's no hallucination or minimize hallucination, prove to me there's no bias, and all those things. So there's a whole bunch of other things that will come into sell to enterprises.
Hallucination is a very big issue, right? If you're doing a healthcare app or healthcare solution using AI and it starts to hallucinate, that's just not acceptable.
There's some still a lot of issues that needs to be figured out, but from what I have heard people talk about in the industry and outside, they're saying amongst all the tech waves we have had in the past 10 years, this is the most promising. So we'll see.
Yeah. Well, it is promising. It's very powerful technology, but it's I think it's not going to go as fast as people are projecting or apprehending either, because it's going to be all these elements have to be worked out, right? An AI application doesn't get dropped into a vacuum situation. There's all this workflow around, there's organization around, there's integration around. All of that has to be figured out to bring an AI solution into any situation. So it can't go that fast, possibly, I don't think. So now, how do you parse the 3 years out, 5 years out, 7 years out question? Because as a VC, you're going to have to deliver revenue, fast-paced revenue in that window. So how are you thinking about what the future looks like?
Yeah, so in AI, really, I think the way I see it, we had seen some aspects already coming into some of the other companies that we have had in our portfolio, like using deep learning, machine learning, and stuff like that. Like to your point, we were doing the same study, and in India at least, when we did the study recently, still 30% of them are still deep learning, machine learning based companies that are getting funded. So not everything has to be Gen AI. So we have seen that already happen. To me, Gen AI aspects is, you can have open-ended things, but I think in the enterprises, I fundamentally believe you will get contextual LLMs coming into play, right? Because I doubt very much where enterprises will just say, I'll use everything that OpenAI brings, because people say that even if you have a RAG or whatever, collapsing that with the OpenAI stuff becomes hard. So we believe that there will be hence proprietary LLMs in various verticals that comes into play. Now, how do you use that and build solutions for enterprises where I think it has to become agentic, where tasks can be replaced by workflows? Because our belief, or what I've read and our belief is if AI really has to be, there are two ways for AI to be really useful, right? Where it produces the first draft of everything, whether it's code or whether it's presentation or anything that you want, design document, anything that you want. And then human intervenes. So, first version is done by AI. The second one is where it completely takes over what the human being would be doing, like in contact center or in testing or whatever. So these are the two areas we are looking at. And we feel more comfortable in doing number one right now. And then agentic, where everything is completely automatic. I think that's a little far out. So we'll focus on the first problem I discussed in our investments right now. And that's what we think will happen in the next 3 years.
Interesting. I think the investing in machine learning companies that do not use generative AI is actually safer because does not hallucinate. Domain specific machine learning does not hallucinate.
Yeah.
And so that's number one. Number two is using small vertical language models that are constrained is one way to check hallucination, check bias, etc., and kind of create things that are more precise. So I kind of agree with you that that's one way to control the issue of hallucination and create more reliable solutions. On this first draft of everything point, as a writer, I do not like to use generative AI as a first draft because it has no style. And it kind of, if you're trying to do something differentiated in writing, it's not easy to do that with generative AI. It's very generic, and it by definition it's very generic, and it's very you can ask it to write in somebody's style and so forth, but it's not stylish writing. It doesn't have punch. So I think it's very helpful to get some work done, but I think there's going to still be room for people doing more interesting copy writing in advertising, in media, and so on. So how do you take generic material and then stylize it is a question that people should ask, because ultimately, if everything sounds like generative AI, then no one's going to pay any attention to anything, right?
Correct. So there are two aspects to it, right? One is where, like you say, where you're a writer and you want to be very creative, and those segments might not lend itself greatly to this. But if you come to the corporate world, whether it's writing code or whether making presentations or whatever, right?
Different. Code is a very different issue. Code is
like,
I think going to get automated.
Correct, right? That is one. And also, like, if it is an internal corporate presentation that you want to bring something out, first draft normally takes time. And then you can really modify it post that, right? What Microsoft is doing with most of the things now, giving an autopilot, copilot, whatever. I think that helps. So there are certain aspects where you want to maintain individuality, like I'm saying, your own style, which it might not lend itself very well because their creativity becomes very hard. But many jobs, many first drafts don't require the kind of creativity that you want, including, code. You can get creative, but sometimes you say don't be too creative because it will not become maintainable. So in those cases, it becomes the first good option.
Yeah, I think coding is going to get automated because that is so deterministic, right? Coding is deterministic. It's like math. Coding is going to get automated, and that's that.
And again, that, right? The same question. We are looking at a couple of companies, but I'm asking myself the question: what will OpenAI do? Where will OpenAI be in a year? If you give it a requirements document, will it churn out code? Right? It already can do it. So hence this constant fear of, when you talk to OpenAI, Srinivas, who was the VP, had come in Bangalore, and we are talking about it, and say, look, we will substitute many things, but there are certain things that we will not touch. So as long as you're in the periphery and doing those things, you're safe. But figuring out what is that periphery, what is meaningful, where it makes sense for enterprise, I think that's the hard part.
So, I think this is the big danger that is coming, is that we have created a society where at the kind of like the top of the pile are tech savvy programmers. They make really huge amounts of money right now, and they are kind of controlling the prestige and everything. Their job is going to get automated. So now comes the question, what do you do with millions of tech savvy people who actually understand AI at a pretty good level? And I think that if we can take millions of people who have some understanding of technology and give them entrepreneurship education, then they can use their technology knowledge and use their entrepreneurship knowledge and actually build companies at a higher level of abstraction. That could be very interesting.
That needs to be, seen how that'll pan out going forward. Interesting times. All I can say is like very interesting times we live in now.
The layers of abstraction question I think about a lot, because when I was in school in the mid-90s, everything was so expensive, right? A laptop was expensive, none of these layers of abstraction existed. So today we have AWS, Azure, etc., and many other layers of abstraction on which you can, and you have the clouds. You can basically provision any amount of capability from the cloud with whatever you need to do. The layers of abstraction has given us ability to bring technology down into the depths of small businesses, right? In the beginning, all this was only available to large companies, large enterprises, and now, as a result, entrepreneurship became much faster, much more nimble, etc. But it's still, especially if you have a lot of technology to build, it's still very expensive to do an entrepreneurial venture. And the next opportunity potentially is that if that becomes, there's more layers of abstraction that makes that easier, that could unlock another, big entrepreneurship, renaissance. But then comes the question, what problems are they solving? That's going to be the real problem, a real question then.
To your point, also, I think software development has become more of integration as opposed to writing a lot of code now. Because you're pulling things together and putting it in a certain way where it gives the outcome that you want, as opposed to our days where we used to write socket code, right? People don't even know what a socket is anymore. Everything is given to them, saying just write. You want to write any web programming, so much abstraction has happened that you don't even need to know the basics anymore. So the paradigm itself has changed significantly over the past 20 years.
Yeah. Well, fascinating conversation, Naganand. Thank you for coming today, and look forward to, we'll catch up soon.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. And as always, learned quite a bit talking to you as well. So,
and likewise,
love to have this conversation. Yeah. Thanks so much.
Yeah.
Bye.
Folks, I'll give you a quick overview of 1 million by 1 million, and you can, ask questions if you like. I'll try to answer, and if not, I'll give you contacts to call afterwards. So everything we do is available online. This is a virtual accelerator. 1Mby1M.com is the place where you start your journey. Our premium program is the full acceleration program, where we offer you strategy consulting on your particular venture. We have private roundtables where you can come and talk to me and about your project, and we will do strategizing on that. And those happen every week. You can come talk to me every week, pretty much. We do have investor introductions. I would like you to go study the investor introduction section of the website so that you understand what the expectations are. Just by joining the premium program, you do not get introduced to investors, because there is a fundability question that you have to answer. And our value proposition really is in helping you get to fundability. And not all companies get to fundability. So you also have to factor that in, is that some businesses are not really venture fundable. The trajectory of $0 to $100 million in 5 to 7 years is a very, very high velocity trajectory. So a lot of the work that we do here is to figure out whether you can hit that kind of a trajectory, and can you credibly present a story to your potential investors where they would buy that, yes, you can hit that trajectory. If not, there are alternative financing modes. There are other ways of financing a venture, or there are ways of creative bootstrapping through which you can mitigate your cash challenges and still move forward, build successful businesses. So for us, success is not just a unicorn. We are doing 1 million by 1 million. So even if you build a profitable $5 million, $10 million company, that's okay with us. However, if you have raised money from the venture capital ecosystem, and that could be in incubator, accelerator, angels, micro VCs, whatever, if you have raised money, then you have put yourself on that high acceleration path. And if you have raised money and you're not accelerating, then we need to look at that. So come talk to me. We will try to, help you figure the issues out, but those issues have to be solved, because then you have to find velocity, you have to find an exit, you have to drive your venture to a logical conclusion. That is a requirement for you to call your venture a success. We have a lot of influence in this market. So if you're following me on LinkedIn, I have a huge footprint on LinkedIn. So if you're in the program, we let you access all of that, leverage and get yourself out there. So you can look at the what to expect from the premium program. We have got a lot of requests for private consulting. So the entire 1M1M premium program, it costs $1,000 a year. So you can't really do private consulting for $1,000 a year. So we do all of that one-on-one work, but you're going to work in a roundtable, and there will be other people, other members in the room, but you will get that one-on-one coaching. But if you're really looking for privacy, then you have to look at one-on-one consulting, and we do offer that. And it's more expensive, but you can access that if you like. Free roundtables coming up July 25th, and then 5 more in August. So book your slot. We have a lot of investor conversations coming up. We have invited a bunch of investors to come and share what they are seeing in the market, for the precise reason that Naganand talked about, is there's confusion in the market right now. There's a tremendous amount of confusion in the market. So we are bringing on investors to, talk about what those confusing elements are, how to address those confusing elements, what are the options, etc. So you will, hear a lot of investor discussions in the upcoming months. If you have questions about the 1M1M premium program in general, Irina is your contact. She's on my team, irina@1mby1m.com. She can also get on the phone with you, WhatsApp, Skype, whatever you like. And of course, if you go on the website, there's a variety of different other things. We have 1M1M Basic, we have Udemy courses. There's, various ways of accessing our curriculum that is on a web self-service mode. You can learn just from the curriculum at a fraction of the cost. That's also fine. Whatever way you want to use the resources we've brought together, you're welcome to use them. Just make sure that you learn, because the first-time entrepreneur's journey is a very, very steep learning curve, and you have to learn. There's no option. All right, so I will see you next time. Naganand, thank you again for coming, and we will continue the conversation.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.